the first thread, and the great tug. The wind outside the longhouse isn't howling, it is holding its breath. Even the snow seems to be listening. It's the kind of deep, iron winter stillness that makes the ancient timber beams groan and the trees in the middle forest crack like snapping bone in the dark. Inside, the hearth is a pulsing heart of oak embers. The elder doesn't speak at first. She holds a simple wooden drop spindle, its base worn smooth by decades of palms. Miri, restless on her stool, reaches for a heavy log by the hearth and gives it a sharp tug. The woodpile shifts with a dry, hollow rattle. At that same moment, a branch snaps outside with a crack like a hammer strike. Olin, the youngest, flinches so hard he nearly falls from his seat. The elder catches the spindle in her palm, stopping its low, hypnotic hum. She looks at Miri's hand, still resting on the log, and then at Olin's trembling shoulders. "The forest is shivering tonight," she whispers. "Even a careless hand on the woodpile can shake the whole house. Do you feel it? When the cold bites the branch, the root feels the sting. When the wind tugs the mountain, the longhouse feels the pull." She draws the raw wool into a single, patient thread. It catches the firelight like a line of gold. The ash-eaters forgot that the world has no edges. They thought they could move their hands without touching the sky. She rests the spindle on her knees. "Listen, little stitches. The loom was singing long before we had ears to hear it. Long ago, when the forest was still learning the names of its own trees, there lived a young squirrel. He was very fast, he was very proud, and he believed he was entirely alone. He lived by the solo spirit. He believed his paws were his own, his hunger was his own, and the forest was simply a place that happened to be standing around him. One morning, just before the first breath of spring, the squirrel found a perfect hazelnut. It was buried deep in the moss beside the riverbank, tangled in the fine white hairs of the earth. The squirrel looked left. He looked right. "No one is watching," he thought. "This is mine." He bit down on the shell, planted his back paws firmly, and pulled. The nut did not move. It clung stubbornly to the moss. The squirrel pulled harder, then harder still. Finally, he gave a mighty, frantic tug. Snap! The nut broke free. The squirrel tumbled backward into the leaves, clutching his prize. He puffed out his chest proudly. He had taken from the forest, and the forest had not noticed. But the squirrel could only see as far as his own nose. When the nut pulled free, the moss tore. When the moss tore, the soft dirt beneath it crumbled. When the dirt crumbled, it slid quietly into the river. The river clouded with brown earth. A silver fish, startled by the sudden darkness, darted sharply to the side. The splash frightened a blue heron resting in the shallows. The heron leapt into the air, its great wings beating the morning wind. The wind rushed up the river bank, and the wind loosened a heavy dying leaf from the branch of an ancient oak. The leaf fell. High in that oak, the elder owl opened one golden eye. The squirrel climbed the oak tree with his nut held tightly between his teeth. When he reached a thick branch, he saw the owl watching him. He puffed out his chest again. "I took the finest nut," the squirrel boasted. "I took it in secret. No one saw me. No one felt me." The owl slowly turned her great head. Her eyes were deep and terribly calm. "No one felt you?" she asked. Her voice sounded like two old stones touching in the river. "Little runner," she said softly, "look down." The squirrel looked. He saw the torn moss. He saw the muddy river. He saw the empty water where the fish had been and the empty shallows where the heron had stood. "You believe you are a single thing," the owl said, "but you are not." She lifted her wings slowly, spreading a shadow over the squirrel. "You are a thread. There is no empty space in the world, little runner. The world is an endless loom. The river is woven to the dirt. The dirt is woven to the moss. The fish is woven to the heron. The heron is woven to the wind." The squirrel looked down at the nut in his paws. Suddenly, it felt very heavy. "When you tug on a single thread," the owl whispered, "the whole pattern shivers. You cannot take a nut from the earth without touching the sky." The squirrel said nothing. He sat quietly beside the owl. He felt the wind move through his fur. For the first time, he realized it was the same wind that breathed through the owl's feathers and rippled the river below. He was not alone. He had never been alone. As the children begin to curl into their furs, the elder does not move toward her own bed. Instead, she turns toward the shadow near the door where Kale the wood warden sits mending a snowshoe. Her voice loses its melodic lilt and takes on the weight of a stone. "You saw it today in the north stand, didn't you, Kale?" she asks. Kale looks up from his work, his face grave in the firelight. "I saw it. The wolves have moved too far east, so the elk stay in the willow shallows too long. They've eaten the banks bare. Now the soil is washing away, and the fish are losing their shade. The great tug," the elder sighs. "The children see the squirrel and learn the caution of the hand. But you and I, we must see the cascade. The ash-eaters thought they could pull a single thread, the wolf, the oil, the forest, and leave the rest of the cloth untorn." She spits a small seed into the fire. It pops sharply. "They were so clever, Kale," the elder whispers, her eyes reflecting the embers. "They mapped the stars and weighed the mountains, but they looked at the loom and saw only loose threads waiting to be gathered." She shakes her head, watching the fire. "They thought they were weavers. They forgot they were just part of the cloth. If the willow dies, the river forgets its path. If the river forgets, the middle forest loses its throat. That is the hidden law. Nothing stands alone long enough to be named." Kyle stops his mending, his eyes fixed on the embers. "The deeper the tug, the longer the echo." "Exactly," the elder says, reaching for the heavy oak-board cover of the codex. "We are not just guarding trees, Kyle. We are guarding the tension of the loom itself. The heavy leather thud of the book closing is the final sound in the room."